Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. We're on Project XJ2 door. Again, this is our 2001 Jeep Cherokee. When you buy an old car, and especially an old XJ, you've got to be prepared for things that might just be loose or failing. That includes bolts, gaskets, and other minor stuff that can actually lead to major problems. Now, we don't have any error codes in our PCM at the moment, and it seems to be running okay, but there's a couple things you're going to see that can lead to that. Even something as simple as a leak on the exhaust gasket or the intake manifold, including vacuum leaks from hoses, can lead to irregular performance that causes sensors to go wild, and then people just start firing the parts cannon at the sensors. But most of what we're going to do today is fairly cheap or free. So look for these things when you get a vehicle. And then, because we have to test start it a couple times and finally got tired of listening to that idle or pulley squeak, we're going to get that taken care of as well. Okay, continuing here on Project XJ2, one of my wish list items is to get rid of this K&N intake system that somebody previously put on it. It's appalling what these things cost, and given the size of the stock air filter on this thing, I think the only advantage you get on this is the oil filter, which does allow more air through, but tends to also allow more dust over time. Now, it was installed right. I mean, it's on here. There's a bracket here for the little plastic housing that's been lost for who knows how long. And somebody did install the car compliance sticker here, so if you were taking it to get smogged in California, it would pass. Let's just start by loosening these two straps over here so that we can get it off of the intake manifold, which thankfully does not also have a spacer installed on it, because that does absolutely nothing for these. They're not carbureted. Kind of baked on, there it is. It's been doing a bang-up job of filtering, hasn't it? Another challenge we face down here is missing hardware. That there, I think, is one of the original screws off the bottom of the airbox, and that there is the stud that the rear bolt goes on with a piece of an old bushing left on it. On the positive side, I think this will clean the threads as it comes off. Yeah, that did clean it a bit. You know what? I think somebody might have put a bolt on the bottom of that. Yeah, it's not actually using the factory location, so that should do the trick. There it is. What a mess. This location and that location are the factory originals. Now, are these 1/4 or something's bigger, something smaller? That feels like a quarter. Well, let's go ahead and test fit the goods. Still got the original factory clips, which is nice. Just gonna go in there. That's me coming up like that. Bottom of the airbox, 3 really decent condition bushings, surprisingly. That one there is a little gamey, but not terrible. Right on the stud there, and right over the 2 holes back here. All right, went to town to put together some hardware, but I think we have what we need now. It's a slightly shorter bolt because I just don't need to put that many threads through the bottom there. Okay, see the bushing compressing, so it's enough of that one right there. Last but not least, a 5/16 fine thread. Let's see if it goes down on there. It's not going to be as convenient to get out later as the original hardware with the captive washer, but it is what it is. Last thing we need, yeah, it's a MicroGard, not because I prefer it, but because it was the cheapest one at O'Reilly. And honestly, that's a perfectly fine air filter and better than the unoiled K&N one that's been on there since who knows when. There we go. This hose is not quite as nice as the OEM pipe, but I think it'll still work. And there we are, most of our way back to a stock airbox. Now, I'm really looking forward to not hearing all that super loud induction noise when I first started up. I know that's not the most important thing, but it is something. Now, for the Dana 30 differential breather repair on Project XJ2 here, I took a slightly different approach, which I didn't film at the time of installation because it was pretty experimental, but it worked really well. So on the original Project XJ, I just took a hose barb like this, machined it down to where it would just jam into the Dana 30 breather installation hole where the plastic fitting would normally be. Tapped it in and it was nice and firm at first, but now it has a little bit of movement to it, and I'm pretty sure if I went through deep water, some would seep past it. But what I discovered on Project XJ2 is I got a 5/16 inch hose barb, and I bought a couple nominally 1/2 inch, I think, pipe inserts. These are brass inserts. They look like something that should have a primer cap installed there, but these are plumbing supplies. These install into soft hose lines so that this part can then compress into a brass fitting. Well, I got to looking at these and discovered that this one here is just a hair larger than the opening on the Dana 30 breather. And it has this nice flanged in so you can start it on center. It has this flanged in here so that it will stop when it's driven all the way in. And I just took a wood dowel, tapped this in with a wood dowel until it was press fit in there. And then once that was in the hole to provide 1/2 of the seal, I then took a 5/16 inch hose splicer and milled it down just slightly on here so it didn't quite fit in here out in the open. And then again, I took the wood dowel and the hammer and I tapped on it until I drove that all the way in there as well, up to the flange, and that seemed to make a really nice, tight, secure fit. So I'm hoping that's a better solution.
We routed a soft line hose up along the firewall, using a length of fire sleeve for added protection from the heat of the nearby exhaust manifold. This is not strictly required, but generic fire sleeve is cheap on the usual gray market websites, so why not? A replacement breather cap was also ordered online. It is nothing more than a nylon fitting with a wobble cap that prevents moisture from flooding directly into the tube. Fortunately, replacements for this device are fairly cheap. Finally, we zip-tied it to the main engine wiring harness using a minor bit of plastic fabrication. The fabrication is also not necessary, but it does make a neater job of the whole affair.
And just like that, the airbox is back out again. Reason being is after we got that work done and tried to start it up again, in addition to the squeak on the front end that we still haven't quite gotten rid of, I heard chuff, 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 chuff. And the only thing that makes it sound like that is a compressor with a valve stuck open, or possibly some other kind of air pump, such as a 6-cylinder engine with an exhaust leak. There's a couple places that could be coming from up here, and I have been smelling an exhaust leak. I just didn't realize it was getting that bad, but a really cold start, everything must have been loose enough that it finally revealed itself. First place is it could be any of these bolts loose here that hold the manifold in place over the gasket. That's certainly a possibility since we know this head has been worked on. And another location, which is really difficult to film, but let's shove a camera down there anyway, is the attachment points of the two-piece exhaust header to the downpipe or the precats on the mostly 2000, 2001s. There might be a few 99s floating around out there I've heard reports of, but for the most part, any of them that are at least equipped for CARB emissions compliance have this two-piece exhaust manifold, which does solve a popular cracking problem on the older models, but then it has a pair of flange adapters right here. And if the bolts of those get loose, then it will have an exhaust leak. And I had that on the original Project XJ and tightened those up. However, since that one didn't have the precats, I was able to at least get some kind of tool down in there and see what was going on. We will need a little bit of PB blaster on those to make sure they can turn freely in order to tighten up. And of course, that will smell wonderful the first or second time it bakes off of a hot manifold. Now I checked those down there, and they are on the bottom side is where the actual head is, and it just looks like it'll turn with a 17. In the meantime, though, let's see what we can do with these. If they turn at all, then that'll tell me something, and if they're really, really stuck, then maybe they're already tight. But this one here looks like it'll go with a 14. Oh yeah, that shouldn't turn like that, so it is a little loose. Maybe our problem is up here. That feels more like the ones on Project XJ1. Oh yeah, same thing there. Yeah, I believe these are not tight. This one looks like it wants a 15. Oh wow, yeah, these were never torqued properly. So that's what our problem is. That feels more like a proper torque spec. That one's a little tighter actually. Okay, that's gotta be closer to spec. There's the manifold and gasket. We just found 5 bolts, so that side there is the top, 3, 4, 5, and then there's the corner ones out here on the edge, but then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 little tiny ones hiding down under there somewhere. Yeah, there they are. You can see, you just barely see them from underneath, or at least see some of them. So let's see what happens. Okay, we might have a workable solution. I don't know if that's the size it's supposed to be, but it's better than it was. That means there's 7 more under there, I think with 14 mil heads. Yeah, this whole carb setup really is a kick in the teeth. But let's see if at least getting those tight enough does a trick. We give ourselves one shot at getting at those 17s down there. Let's start with the flex head and the spline bit just to give myself the best possible chance of getting on them down there. That is such a wacky solution though. I don't think it's going to work. Well, there's that. You have to go with those from the bottom with an extension. I don't see another way to get at them. Start it up and see if we still have a problem. If we do, we'll have to try it again tomorrow and we'll probably have to lift it. We do have one more need on here, fresh out of eBay. Let's see if it's the right thing. Well, those are supposed to be R134A caps, but they are surely not. Don't know what to make of that. This engine here, when we start it up, it squeaks pretty badly. We've tried listening around it using the stick method, and sometimes that works and gets you to a device, sometimes it doesn't. Could be the alternator, but it doesn't sound like it's coming from the alternator. Could be the AC, but it doesn't change when the compressor engages or disengages, which is kind of unusual for an idler bearing. And could be the power steering pump, but that's new. So the idler pulley is one that we want to look at, and if that doesn't do it, then maybe we've got something squeaking in the fan down there. Who knows? First step to get access down here to the idler pulley is to remove this electric fan. This one here also still has the original electric fan clip undamaged, so that pops out like that, and then this is just supposed to remove, but I'm not sure how happy it's going to be to do that. Sometimes a stuck electrical connector can take longer than the rest of the job. Maybe that's it. First you unlock it and then you pop that up. Okay. These connectors always baffle me a bit because usually by the time you get one of these vehicles they're in various states of disrepair. So I can't tell if that's supposed to press. There we go. Sometimes it actually works right if you look at it correctly. Now, coming on the bottom here, looks like I'm gonna have to break a zip tie to get at this. There we go. That fan's not dead. That bearing also isn't feeling great either, so this may be a replacement part coming up. We've now gained access to the idler pulley, which is right here. I can't remember what bolt that is. 17? Too big. 14? Too small. But 15 is just right. So lefty should be loosey. Oh, lefty is loosey, way too loosey. And then tensioner over here, also a normal threaded bolt. Lefty loosey, so we're going to uncinch that belt. Another thing that can help down here when working in this area is just to unplug that guy and just tuck it back out of the way for a minute. We just need to get in here and finish loosening this to get the idler pulley off, and I think that'll be the end of that. Let's leave the belt hanging there, and hopefully, yeah, that's all there is to it. I don't know. That looks pretty sloppy. Doesn't feel great. Here's what we ordered. Let's see if it's the same thing. This is Murray 2330037. Now in here I've got pulley with the bearing, this little insert. Appear to have the same hole through the center, and I believe that's supposed to go there. However, I think we'll actually use the original one. And this new replacement, they're actually identical in the middle. You see how there's a flanged lip right there? That flanged lip rides on the center of the pulley here. But then this one has this additional piece coming out over here that just sort of acts as a protector for the bearing seal. So I can't think of a reason not to reuse the old one and just hang on to that in my spare parts bin, because it needs to go right about there. We just have to turn this over a couple times in order to get it nice and snug. Although keep in mind I am using a 20-inch breaker bar here, so it is possible to put way too much torque using this. Okay, I'm going to pause to do a quick repair on these missing fan tabs. I think I can work up with something with some scrap aluminum and a couple rivets, and then it'll just drop back in the way it's supposed to. Okay, it took a minute to get this squared, but I found some black ABS plastic pieces, which ironically were from the rear seat hardware of a Grand Cherokee, so they're coming right back into another Mopar. There we go. Over here. I'm going to get our electrical connector back together. Hopefully next time we remember to take it apart properly and not force it. Click together and locked. Well, at this point, I'm fairly confident we have solved a problem because the way that pulley was installed, it wasn't working out, and we'll see if it keeps squeaking. If it does, then we'll have to start gradually troubleshooting through other devices, but for sure that needed to be replaced, even if it wasn't making all the noise. So, if you do forget to plug in your coolant temperature sensor, yeah, you get a check engine light, and you will need to reset that with a code reader, but we can go ahead and shut this down. Plug that back in. Stored codes. P0118 engine coolant temperature sensor circuit high, so it's not reading it, or it wasn't at the time. Now let's go to pending codes and see if that's still the case. There are no pending codes. We've reconnected everything, so all we need to do now is go to erase codes. Erase done. Well, there it is. Started out looking for a bad idler pulley, found a bad idler pulley. Also found some issues with the E-fan that we got fixed there, and it's all back together and ready to go once again.
The last place where we found air at risk of going in and out where it should not was at the charcoal canister that lives under the rear floor pan on the driver's side. This fun little box collects surplus fuel vapors and passes them forward to the purge valve under the hood whenever the PCM decides conditions are right to dump them into the intake manifold. The canister has 3 rubber fittings which are well known for turning into marshmallow cream after about 15 to 20 years, and then the evaporative emissions leak codes will start getting triggered at the PCM. Not all of these fittings have exact replacements. Sometimes these can be sealed with self-adhering silicone tape to kick the can down the road a few years, but if they're too far gone, different size hose sections and a small kit of universal vacuum line fittings can also be used to replicate the failed rubber bits, adding in zip ties or hose clamps where needed.
There it is. Feels like a lot of small stuff, maybe even a little tedious, but these are the things you just got to get done when you get a project vehicle, and if you don't, they're going to cause bigger problems as things continue to loosen up or gaskets fail, and especially like on our intake there, we had just enough blow-by starting that we were able to tighten everything down and it was back to normal, but if that blow-by continues, especially on the exhaust, it'll just start to eat out that gasket, and now you've got to pull everything out and replace the gasket. So, hope that gets your project vehicle moving in the right direction. I certainly learned some things today, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Has anyone seen my phone?